The truth occurs.
Hi everyone, it's Sonia here. Well, in this video, I want to show you a quiz that you can do online, which is the best pre-quiz that you can do if you're wondering if you're on the autism spectrum. And I want to say this video is dedicated to my viewer, Sheldon, who's also my supporter on Patreon. I do have a Patreon, and on there I do offer video chats through Skype. And if you want to talk to me directly, that's a good way to do it. So this video is for Sheldon, who is kind of wondering whether he could be on the autism spectrum. Also, before I start, I want to give a shout out to my partners at purifierpouch.com. You just put the pouch down and it destroys viruses, bacteria, fungus, mold in the air. Basically like whatever's making your house smell. So if you're interested, head over to the website to check it out for more info. And if you order through the link, you get 15% off and no shipping and handling, even if you live in Canada. So, okay, my viewer Sheldon was kind of wondering, like a lot of people, whether he could be autistic. I mean, he was wondering, like a lot of people wonder, not as in a lot of people were wondering whether Sheldon's autistic, although maybe that could be the case too. In any case, I'm going to share with you the quiz because there are a lot of quizzes online that, you know, purport to help you figure out if you're on the spectrum or not, such as the Aspie quiz. And there are a bunch of quizzes at, oh, I can't remember the name of it now, but there's one that'll like map out all the different areas of your brain and your functioning and tell you whether you're leaning to neurotypical or you're leaning to autistic. The thing is, a lot of these quizzes, what they do is they measure traits, and neurotypical people can have autism traits too. What matters are really the essentials, the things that will actually lead a psychologist to diagnose or exclude autism. Sorry, my eyes go all over the place. That's probably because of my autism. So, okay, so this quiz that I want to tell you about, which you can actually have access to on Psych Central. This quiz is called the RADS 14. And as it says here, this is a screening measure to help you determine whether you might have an autism spectrum disorder that needs professional attention. So this is not in and of itself diagnostic, but as you're going to see, like let's say, you know, you kind of think, well, I have a whole bunch of autism traits. And then you do this and they're going to see that, you know, traits or not, the major criteria don't seem to apply to you. This will probably indicate that whatever you have, it's not autism. On the other hand, if a lot of the criteria do apply, they're going to say it's likely you have autism, you know, or it's more likely. So it's going to sort of narrow things down in your quest for truth, right? Okay, so it starts out like this. You know what? I'm just going to do it with you and you'll see how autistic I am. I have a feeling this is going to be a long video. Okay, so let's start with this. I am a female, and how old am I? 48, and that's the truth. Okay, so here are the questions. It is difficult for me to understand how other people are feeling when we are talking. Now you get the choice, true both now and when younger, true only now, true only when younger, or never true. Those are the answers that you can give to any one of these. I would say for me, it's probably at this point only true when I was younger. I've generally gotten pretty good at knowing how people feel, except with certain things. Like I can tell if someone is annoyed, if they're being fake with me, if they're interested or they're not interested, or something's bothering them. But I don't pick up on things like jealousy, like those kind of things, or when we're talking, yeah, when we're talking, probably I can. But I don't pick up on things like what's going on between other people. I just don't notice that kind of stuff. Like people go, oh, did you see how he looked at her? Or, oh, did you see what? Usually I'm like oblivious. Although if I really want to, I can pay attention to it. But I've gotten pretty good at reading body language. So I'm going to say true only when younger. Maybe I'm less autistic now than I was a few years ago. You never know. Okay, question number 2. Some ordinary textures that do not bother others feel very offensive when they touch my skin. Yes, true now. And when younger, that is a big fat yes for me. It is very difficult for me to work and function in groups. I'm sorry to say, but the answer is yes. I want to be a nice person, but it's hard for me. I find it's hard to give instructions. For some reason, it's so hard for me to say to the person, like, please pass me that, or, whatever, any kind of, like, the other day even, like a friend of mine was holding a towel. Normally people would say, could I use the towel, please? I just went up and started, started drying my hands. My first reaction is just to want to just grab or do. And of course that's antisocial. So I make an effort, but it's hard. And it's always been hard. Like when I was in school, I would either be really, really hanging back in the group and not saying much if someone there had good leadership abilities, or I would actually take the leadership role, but I wasn't maybe the most affable leader. I was more like the field marshal, but it's like in school I was very focused and motivated. So if I want to get an A, and I can see that nobody here knows how to get an A, I'm going to get us that A. Even if you don't like me, I would be kind of dictatorial with the group, but it's because I really wanted an A and I knew I could get it and I wasn't messing around. But on the whole, I would say, no, I don't work well in groups for a number of reasons. So, true both now and when younger. Okay, 4, it is difficult to figure out what other people expect of me. Actually, it's something I don't really think about. I try to do the right thing. I try to do what I think you're supposed to do. I don't always know what people expect of me. I'd have to say true both now and when younger, but I work around it, but just trying to do what I think you're supposed to do. I think I've let people down though sometimes. They were expecting something else and I was like, oh really? Sorry, I didn't know. I often don't know how to act in social situations. I don't think so. I think I usually do know how to act. Sometimes it takes a little effort. I'd say true only when younger, and at that point, definitely true. I can chat and make small talk easily with people. Look, I can easily talk to just about anyone. I'm not sure if it's what you call small talk. My humor tends to come out and be maybe a bit odd. I hope that people would like it, but I think sometimes I've learned lately to hold back more and be like, you can't make this joke with this person because they don't know you, so they're just going to think you're crazy. You know what I mean? Or I would talk about things that were just too personal with people that I feel like I kind of know them. I mean, I come to the store all the time, so why can't I just talk to them about, whatever? And I've realized more what the social boundaries are. But honestly, just to make small talk, it's a skill you have to cultivate. And I've always found it difficult. I can do it now, but it takes effort. So true only when younger, including up till just a few years ago. I feel overwhelmed by my senses. I have to isolate myself to shut them down. I would say yes, true both now and when younger. That's a big yes. How to make friends and socialize is a mystery to me. I'm sure you wouldn't think so if you saw me now. When I was younger, absolutely. I mean, I remember looking at people and being like, how do they know what to do? Oh, it was just on every level. Complete mystery. At this point, over many years, I've learned how to cultivate and hold on to friendships. I've learned more about what you have to put into a relationship to keep it going, how to be a good friend. Making new friends is still really hard for me. I have very few true new friends. Now and then I'll click with someone, but I don't make friends easily. I could actually, for example, go to the same church for years and never have a person that I would feel like we're friends. If it's my pastor, I might call them. Other people, I might really care about them. I might call them to say, do you need something? Because they just had a baby. Would you like me to make food? But there is no one, even after all these years, and it's a small church, that I feel like I'm friends with. It's really hard to actually know where that line is sometimes. So, I don't know. I do have friends. I can socialize now. So I would say true only when younger, but let's say there's some things that still stay there. And I'm giving you these details just so you can kind of have an idea of what it's like for a person with a ASD, like a high functioning or supposedly mild ASD. Just FYI. When talking to someone, I have a hard time telling when it is my turn to talk or listen. Oh my God, when I was younger, yes, big yes. Now, well, I make an effort. There is a little coach in my head that goes, they're still talking. you need to like really focus on what they're saying. I sort of trained myself to listen better. I mean, it just takes work. Like when somebody puts something out there as an aspie, your reaction is usually to flip it back on yourself. It's your way of saying I relate, but you have to sort of fight that and say like, how can I respond to make it more about them? And when is it your turn to stop talking? Like you have to remember like, okay, you've been talking now, like stop, let them respond. Like there's a coach. So I would say when I was younger, yes, it was hard. But now it takes coaching. So I would say true only when younger. Sometimes I have to cover my ears to block out painful noises, like vacuum cleaners and people talking too much or too loud. Yes, true now and when younger. It can be very hard to read someone's face, hand, and body movements when we're talking. Now this is weird, okay, because I literally have books on body language and I study that stuff. And I think I'm pretty good at reading expressions, like if you show me pictures and whatever. And yet, it's the weirdest thing. Sometimes somebody will make a hand gesture or sign to me and I'm looking at them like, what? You know, like it's almost like, yes, I've studied it, but then in practice, sometimes I literally, like, it's like I don't see it. Like, I can't remember what were the gestures, but even sometimes the nodding or looking at me and like a thumbs up, or it was just like some little thing, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I think they're looking at me and making signs and I don't know what they are. Like, so it can be hard to read someone's face, hand, and body movements. It's weird because for the most part, it's become pretty easy for me now because I'm very attentive to it. And yet sometimes still I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to say. I would say true only when younger, with the caveat, you know. 12, I focus on details rather than the overall idea. I'm not really sure. Oh, yes. Actually, wait a minute. I do tend to see connections between details, which is what they call fluid intelligence. So in that way, I'm able to like look at all the clues and then come up with, you know, like my theory of what is at the root of this. But whenever I'm given a questionnaire where they ask general questions, especially when it's like rate it 1 to 5, and then they'll say some really, oh my gosh, I can't even remember what the questions are, but they're like, I remember like this one psychology quiz I did where they were like, I would rather go to a party than a library. And I'm like, well, it depends whose party it is. And what is the reason I'm going to the library? Like, I can't in a general way say which one I prefer because it really depends on the details. But it's like that for everything. Like if people ask questions about my family or about whatever, it's so hard for me to generalize that now when I go and shrinks, like if I go to see my son's making a lot of noise, sorry. If I had to ask for help at some point with like anxiety and depression, I said, yes, fine, I'll see the shrink. And they sent me to like a social worker or something. And as soon as she brought out the questionnaire with the general questions, I was like, I'm sorry, I don't want to put myself through this because like it's so hard. It's like my brain is grinding. Anyway, long story short, I would say true now and when younger, but I've gotten better at dealing with it. Okay, 2 questions left. I take things too literally, so often miss what people are trying to say. I don't misunderstand expressions. Like, you know, if somebody says it's raining cats and dogs, obviously I know. Sometimes I still do, and it's kind of funny. I can't remember any off the top of my head. On the whole, I don't think I do now, but I would say true when younger. I know I did when I was younger. And 14, I get extremely upset when the way I like to do things is suddenly changed. Oh my God, I will have to admit, yes. And it's so weird because I mean, I like to think that I'm normal and that I come across as being normal. But what this really has to do with is I think the difficulty shifting. It's a brain problem, and the difficulty with working memory and multitasking. And so we tend to become very routine oriented as a way of making our lives more manageable. And when we're under stress and then something gets changed, it can just be too much for our brain to handle. I just remember a little while ago when a friend came over and there was some kind of problem with the computer, well, the TV or whatever. It was like the Blu-ray. And I can't remember what it was, but I just remember it was like, I need to watch Forensic Files. I need it this way. I need to sit there on the couch. And I can't remember what it was, but something came up that disrupted my routine, and I felt like I was going to explode. My friend was there, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Like, she can really see my neurotic side now. Most of the time, I have that under control. It's not like I'm like that all day, but there will be times, or if I have to do something, I really have to do it in a certain order. And I don't really like things getting thrown all, you know, in different arrangement, because I don't function well under those circumstances. Although, you know, if we were going out and it started to rain and we couldn't do it, I'd be like, oh well. And I have the coping skills, you know, I'm not going to freak out. Oh my God, we were supposed to go on a picnic. I can't handle this. It's not like that. But for some things, yeah, like for some big things, like, you know, if I was going to take a plane trip and the plane got delayed, I'd probably be like, okay, you know, because I put it in God's hands, so I can handle when things don't go my way. But there are these little things sometimes where it's like, it's got to be that way, because I just can't anymore. So I'm going to say true only when younger, although it's still sometimes true now. Actually, no, I have to say true now and when younger, but for certain things. Okay, score my autism quiz. 29. Oh my God. Okay, so, well, this is why we do this 14-point autism quiz. I scored 29, okay? So here's the way the scoring works, okay? 0 to 13 is no autism symptoms. So although you're going to have some things scoring on there, if it's up to 13 is really, really unlikely that you're on the spectrum. 14 to 30, autism possible. 31 and up, autism likely. So my score of 29, actually, yeah, that's like what I got, I think, last time. It's in autism possible. Like, as you see, it's on the upper end of that. What, in my case, what I would account for this score, which makes total sense to me, was that I do have an autistic disorder, but as I'm now 48 years old and have a lifetime of learning to adapt to it, a lot of the things that I struggled with much more as a child, like the social aspects, have gotten a lot better. I mean, if I had taken this quiz 10 years ago, I probably would have been over 31. But in any case, it's in the end of Autism Possible. I already do have an autism diagnosis. So it goes to show that this quiz is quite accurate. There's other things that they look at, such as what you were like as a child, because what you're like now can be a lot different. You know, if you look at me when I was a child, you say, oh, she's autistic. You know, now you look at me and be like, oh, she's a little weird, but I don't think she's on the spectrum. But anyway, this is a good, you know, indicator for where you are. If you get under 13 or under, you can pretty much say, well, that's not going to be it, you know. So I hope this is helpful to you. And if you take the quiz and you want to tell me how it went, let me know. And you know what's funny? I have a friend who in personality is a lot like me, except minus all the sensory stuff. And I thought maybe she's on the spectrum. I mean, maybe, right? Like, I don't know. But when she did the quiz, she was 13 and under, not likely. So it goes to show you can have personality traits or behaviors in common with a person on the spectrum and yet not actually be on the spectrum. So that's it. I hope it's helpful to you. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for your support on Patreon. And God bless you guys. And I'll see you next time.